Good morning, everyone. Happy to see you this morning. So let's start with meditation as people are still coming in. Take your attention inside and leave your eyes open just a little slit so you're still present in both worlds. We would say there's only one world, but because we spend so little time focusing our attention inward in this particular culture, we have to talk about it as two worlds. Because how we behave on the outside and how we perceive ourselves on the inside are often not the same. When they become one, then they're no longer two worlds. So first, pull your attention just below your belly button. Home base, safe place. Whenever you're orienting yourself inside, it's best to start with your attention below your belly button so you're sure that your breath is going deeply into your body. Breathe into that space below your belly button, dropping your diaphragm. Notice how your mind becomes quiet as you put your attention below your belly button. All of your attention. Give your mind a break. And then continuing down, take your attention to the center of the earth. Feel deeply into this connection. And now from here, we'll do the Om sound upward just 3 times to orient ourselves in the flow of our central channel. So sing with me at whatever pitch you like. The 3 syllables. Ah, oo, Ah, Now take your attention above your head. Point 6 or 8 inches above your head. And now visualize an open flower on your head, the biggest flower you can imagine, with petals opening up to the sun. Allowing the white light to flow down from above you, cleansing and purifying all that needs to be released in you. And so you ask, everything that's not mine, please leave. As this white light is running through your system. And you imagine an egg shape surrounding your energetic field that allows in positive energy and filters out negative. And understand, whenever you bump into quote unquote negative energy, the solution is to align yourself with your highest good and the highest good of the whole. This is the place where we surrender our own negativity. We allow it to leave. And in this way, we pull ourselves out of any mud. So now you breathe from the space above your head to the space at the center of the earth. And feel your beingness come into alignment with the all of the all that is. And now we're going to add in the double breath. With the double breath, you center yourself in your infinite beingness. So what you do is you take we'll talk you through it first. You take a very deep breath and you hold it as long as you possibly can. Then you let go of a little bit at the top and you breathe in again, filling that space. And notice whatever you notice. So go ahead and do that. body gently. Hold your attention where you are and slowly open your eyes. Understanding what it is to be two places at once and nowhere at all. How may we serve this morning? So happy to be with you. Feels like it's been forever. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the double breath practice. It is the essential practice that Rebecca was given from Swami Chaitanananda, whose teacher was Swami Rudrananda, whose teacher was Muktananda and Nityananda. Anyway, it's a central practice for internal work. And you can do it about every 10 minutes as you meditate. It speaks for itself, how it opens your inner awareness deeper. And it's a valuable practice. But there's not much to say about it because it's an experiential practice. And so each of us will experience it differently according to the unique parts of our experience and internal awareness. So at this point in our guidance, we want you to pay attention to your own experience more than what we say about spiritual experience. Because the most important thing about alignment is your confidence in yourself, in that alignment. And that confidence can't come from another being. It can't come from outside of you. You can use outside reference points to learn, but really confidence is based in trust that the inner source is available to us. We can talk to you all day and all night for decades. But if you don't really internalize deep within yourself, trust in the highest and your own connection to it, then all the words in the world can't help you. This is lived through experience, not something that we can pretend to embody. And yes, transmission is helpful because it increases your awareness of fields that are available to you. But what really increases your awareness is your own experience and your allowing of yourself to have access to these fields. And so part of what we're doing is transmitting a field of energy to you, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't already exist inside you waiting for your discovery. So it's not what you're able to feel when you're with us that's important, but what you're able to feel when you're not in our immediate presence that determines your spiritual power. And spiritual power is maybe a wrong word, but it's a true word. And because connection to spirit does have power. And you can feel that in this moment as we are available to you. And you become more and more available to yourself. Because what you're feeling is not exactly what's coming from us, but what there is within you that resonates with that field of experience. So you could not feel it if you did not have resonance. It's resonance that makes it palpable, makes it your experience. But that very resonance is the proof that that experience exists within you without any other intervention. It exists for every human being. And this is a tiny part of that field. And meditation is expanding your awareness and your sense of comfort within that energetic field, which is, it contains everything that is. It is infinite possibility. And anything we say about it limits it. All we can do is point. And encourage you to practice. So we'll talk a little bit about astrology since we've been studying a lot and sort of see what's coming. We want to share with you. Don't know what we said last week, so if we already said this, apologize. Apologies are in order. But what's happening is that Mars is in its own house called Aries, which is the first house of the natural horoscope. And Mars in Aries has a lot of action-oriented energy and can be very aggressive and military and warlike and can have to do with fires and accidents and all kinds of things like that, because it's the just do it planet. If you're going to talk about it, an easy way to remember. So Mars is there in its own house, getting a ton of energy. Own house is one of the most powerful places in the chart. So the planet really has a lot of energy for expression. So while that's there, there's also Uranus, one of the three outer planets, which is the planet of rebellion and sudden unexpected events. And it's also a first-class malefic, means that it can make us really, really uncomfortable with the type of energy and the type of change it brings into our lives. And it moves very slowly. It takes 7 years for Uranus to pass through one house, one 30-degree segment of the 360-degree that surrounds the Earth. And so that planet is also there. And so it's not stationary, but it moves very slowly. So Mars is moving toward Uranus. At the same time, there is a third energy source, and this is the shadow planet Rahu. And Rahu and Ketu are the two shadow planets in the sky. They're called shadow planets because they don't really exist as anything but energetic fields. And they're the fields where every year there are 2 or 3 eclipses, or 4. And these eclipses are where the sun or the moon is blocked. And these particular locations in the sky are quite powerful, even though they don't always have planets there. So we track those 2 locations because they're fields of energy that have a lot of power. So Rahu, the planet of insatiable desire, is also in Aries, and it moves in reverse to all the other planets in the chart. So we have these 3 energy fields that are incredibly strong and incredibly, we'll use the word angry, just to give you the feel that you're probably already experiencing of this intense aggressive energy that will be completely combined into one configuration at 24 degrees on August 18th from Portland, Oregon, and most of the United States. And it will remain in close conjunction. I mean, did I say August? I meant July. July 28th until August 1st. We're not good with time and numbers when we're channeling. So let's try that again, July 28th to August 1st. But really, you can feel it now, and you'll be able to feel it well into mid-August. So there's a lot of aggressive, we'll just call it aggressive energy in the sky, causing a lot of that to manifest in the world. And the entire world is experiencing this more or less at the same time, within hours, because everyone is subject to this planetary configuration in the sky. So we just want you to be aware that that's happening, so that when these energies come through, we don't identify with them as we tend to do whenever we feel strong energy like that. We look for what in our environment we can blame that energy on. And so this is the value of knowing the astrology. You don't have to look to your partner to blame them for the negativity that you're experiencing, because that's what we all tend to do. We look in our environment and we say, it's you. And then we point our finger, and there we're off to the races, blaming somebody else for what we're feeling inside ourselves that we can't explain. So it's one of the values of knowing something about astrology. And it gives us a little bit of space so we can take a breath and say, oh, this isn't anybody's fault. It's just happening. And hopefully forewarned is forearmed. So no bungee jumping, as my teacher would say, mountain climbing, paragliding, all the kinds of things that are risky behaviors. We kind of wait till a calmer time and Be careful driving. Everybody's going to be a little bit feeling like they're in a traffic jam, even when they're not. So that's happening. But you see how knowing it can give you a little bit, just you can take a breath before you respond to any adversity. And what human beings tend to do is they blame the adversity on something outside themselves. And then they act out all this energy because they don't understand that it's actually coming from the sky, not from the malevolence of the people around them. Except that in the same way we were talking earlier about resonance of energies in our field, we respond to all resonances. And this energy coming from the planets also interacts with the energy within us to magnify certain experiences. And so we can use this period as a time of when we start to feel agitated, feeling deeper in ourselves and asking the experiences that are coming up, asking for the resonance that if there's information we need to know inside ourselves about our past history that is resonating and making us feel a certain way, we can actually resolve those resonant experiences in ourselves without having to confront the people in our environment and blame them, which is our knee-jerk reaction. We can actually go deep within ourselves, experience that feeling, oh, I feel angry for no reason, and let that be, and let it inform us about any resonance that might want to grab onto that anger. And suddenly you'll have an idea, oh, this person did this to me 25 years ago. And in that moment, you have the opportunity to, through Ho'oponopono, resolve that old experience. You don't have to know anything about it except that it resonates with the aggression that you feel from the planets. That you will feel inside yourself as though it just rises up in you to be expressed. If you can investigate it a little bit with your breath, allow it to be, and bring it into harmony. This is really using knowledge, information to become a bigger person. We hope that makes sense. And now we're going to be quiet and let you ask questions. We've been kind of nonstop motor mouth this morning. So it's a good time to stay home and be a little bit quiet. And really concentrate on building good feeling inside yourself and sharing it with everybody you meet. Understanding that everybody's going to be gnarly and it's not exactly their fault. But imagine a world where everybody had this information. It'd be a little bit different, huh? Andrew? Brenda? Sorry, I'm saying names, but I don't know how else to do it. If I can't speak to these guys and say their names, I'm in trouble. Hi, come on. Tell us.
Hi. First off, I wanted to ask, I missed the session evidently, or the sound was bad, about why we can't use names or why you're avoiding
Oh,
names.
it has to do with protecting people's privacy, because these talks are put on the internet, and it's less work for Brenda, who does all the work, to she will have to go and delete the names if we say them, because we want to keep everybody's privacy off the internet. You know, we want to keep everybody's names, and so, and it's not that we're saying anything that we want to be protected. We just don't want you to have your name on the internet in any way that's associated with anything. So it's really a privacy issue.
Okay, that makes total sense. I hadn't thought of the internet aspect of it. I was just thinking we were all meeting here and it didn't matter.
Yes, we put these programs up on a channel called Rebecca Reese Anasa on YouTube. And
I think we've been seeing them, occasionally, but I hadn't connected it with
yes, so we want these sessions to be available to people, even though, Rebecca's understanding is, as we promised from the beginning, every session becomes more intense, and well, we'll just say that the intensity and the quality of the information, it's so difficult for three-dimensional reality to contain what we're bringing through. And so as she grows, so does the information. And so we want this to be available, in whatever context, to those it might serve, as long as the internet's available. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. And my actual question was about the phrase inner work, which I've heard almost all my adult life, and I have a sense of what it means. And, I meditate, I do yoga, I am trying to refine the expression, not express negative emotions outwardly and that sort of thing. But I was wondering if you could just say some more, as if I was a beginner, which in fact I am, about the term inner work.
Well, as we kind of have been alluding to this morning, because our culture is so extremely outwardly oriented, we have the experience that we live in two worlds, the inner world and the outer world, and that they're very separate. When beings are complete in their unification with divinity, with internal divinity, that we always have a choice every minute of our day. We always have a choice about whether our attention is inside or outside. And as we become more congruent with the inside and the outside, then we just live in one world, which is unified, not divided into inner and outer. Because there's only one song going on instead of two. So as long as we experience ourselves as two, the inner and the outer, and they're not congruent, then inner work is actually bringing the two worlds into one, because the separation is only between our ears. In actual fact, there is no separation. So as long as we feel ourselves as separate, there is inner work to be done. And that's what we're talking about, that sense of separation. And it's really that sense of separation that drives anyone and everyone to spiritual practice. However they experience that, that's really what is going on. It's this complete frustration with, it doesn't make any sense what I'm experiencing on the inside with what I'm experiencing on the outside. What is going on? How, where? You know, this is what brings us to the conclusion that something's rotten in Denmark. And Denmark is not out there, it's inside us. And so inner work is coming into congruence with our own divinity, which is the source of every, and we'll call it inspiration for want of a better word, but every impulse that occurs in a human being is coming from that source. But it comes through the filters that make us feel like our experience is divided. So I'm sure you would have gotten a different answer last week, and you'd get a different answer next week, but that's today's view of what inner work is. And this is the beauty of it. It is so, life is so complex in its unique expression at every moment that in this endeavor, you will never, ever be bored. There'll be all kinds of other things, but boredom is not part of it. Sleep.
Thank you.
Expansive. Oh, you're so welcome. Does that answer it?
Yes.
Okay. How may we serve further? I don't know about you, but the luxury of being able to take a deep breath in a calm space is sometimes such great pleasure. And the reason it's not boring is because there's lots of contrast to that. And the word we use is contrast because it takes it out of the field of judgment. You know, it's so easy to call everything good and bad, when most things, when we examine them closer, are a mix. They're just a mix. Most of our experience is a mix. And it's this whole concept of good and bad. Neither would exist without the other, by the way. And since everything is mixed, this is just a problem with our language. It's all black and white. That's what linear thinking is. And one thing we can say is that when you're experiencing life as black and white, it's usually matrix of belief at work that's making it so we can't see the complexity of contrast. When you have that moment of calm, clear breath, the intensity of the energies in sort of the field of our experience can be experienced without identifying with that resonance. It's like seeing the rain but not being wet. So all the feelings can be available to us without us grabbing onto that which in ourselves would make them something we have to act on. It's so interesting that in allowing ourselves to experience from a calm place, we have a breath space before we react. This is not separation, but sanity. We're not separate. We are experiencing. We are separate from our reaction. So there is the field of experience, and then there is the field of awareness. And it's not that there's a line between the two. But awareness is what we say, I am that, because there's no beyond that, you can't say anything. Whereas feeling There's a subtle difference. And we would say that subtle difference has everything to do with allowing the trust we were talking about at the very beginning. How may we serve further today?
Good morning.
Anything? Oh, hi, Jackson. Oops,
Sorry.
sorry.
It's fine. Yeah, thank you for all this. I something that's been coming up is as you've been talking about these different influences and dynamics has been this thing that I've noticed recently, that like one of my biggest like sore spots that I'm working with right now is like the ability to like have faith in the ability to like transform, you know. And it's funny because I feel like I've experienced that enough and like seen it enough to know it's real. And then, you know, we approach that in different ways, and then certain aspects like shadow side stuff, like basically certain aspects are like you know. Yeah, I was just curious what you thought about that.
Well, there are a few things to know about. You know, really what you're asking about is how to change. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
So there are a couple facts that really help. And that is that when you're trying to make a change, it's important that you put it in positive terms. That instead of being, trying to get away from something or overcome something, or you reframe it to yourself in terms of who you're becoming. Because in all cases, when we're trying to make a change, we want to engage the highest parts of ourselves in being able to express in a more complete way in our environment. That's what we're really trying to do. So with the understanding that whenever we are trying to engage the highest forces within ourselves, they do not respond to any words that have anything to do with being less than or lacking something or, being bad or, they just don't respond to the negative. So we have to have a vision of who and what we are becoming, we want to become, rather than focusing our attention on the limitation, whatever it is that we're trying to overcome in our lives. Does that make sense? So that's the first step, is to have a vision of what it is. And then we make incremental efforts to change whatever it is we're trying to change. And by incremental, we mean the understanding that any new pattern we want to adopt within ourselves takes 21 days to become a habit. So we take that piece of information and we take our vision and we choose one thing that we're going to hang on to change for 21 days. And we understand that every time we interrupt that 21 days with some kind of mistake, which we all make, every time we interrupt that change, it takes 21 more days to reinstitute the change. And so it may take us 2 years to do those 21 days, and that's fine. It's totally fine, because change is difficult. We don't just wave a magic wand and become a different person. It doesn't happen like that. We may understand for 5 years that there is a change we need to make within ourselves and be unable to make it, and that's okay. That's being human. And then the day we have a vision of ourselves without that pattern running our life, that's the day that we can begin to implement the change. And then we do it for 21 days. And we understand that we'll screw up because we've done it a lot already. All of us, when we want to make a change, it's because we got really tired of ourselves screwing up in the same way over and over and over again. And so we understand that it's difficult. We understand that much forgiveness is required in the process because it's hard, these real changes that we need to make in ourselves. And that the first thing that's going to happen is the shadow side is going to jump up, because there's a reason that we establish that behavior in ourselves as the norm rather than the exception. And we just work at it. And that's another reason why it's called inner work, because this isn't easy. And it's not about magic wands. We wish it could be. And when we accomplish a new level, it feels like a magic wand was waved in our lives, because we don't really understand how it happened. And we're completely grateful. And we know that, somehow our struggle had something to do with it. But, in the final analysis, little to do with it. It just happened. That's grace. And so you have to be really, really self-forgiving to make a change. because it's our self-condemnation that, and then our reaction to that makes us have to begin the 21 days over and over and over. Does that make any sense? And is it helpful?
Yeah, it's immensely helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But when you understand that it all has to happen in a field of self-forgiveness, that's where compassion for other people comes from. Because we understand we've beat our own heads against the wall so many times. And, it's just part of the process. And it's okay. It's difficult. Inner work is difficult. Sometimes it's really easy. And that's when grace is in our lives. But for most of us, most of the time, it's hard work. By the way, we're just going to say an observation, and that is that we've noticed that there's lots of COVID out there right now. And for most people, it's not life-threatening. And hopefully it's just a time to build antibodies so that we're more prepared for whatever is coming. But we've just been noticing that, thought we'd pass it on. Mm-hmm.
You talked about the upcoming weeks from an astrology perspective being, I think, wonky. What if what if sitting still is, you can only do that so much. Like personally, I already have travel, next week. I have other big changes happening within that very window. And how do I manage through that? Is there anything to be aware of or do more of or less of in those time frames?
Understand that questioning any anger that arises as whether it's real, whether it's appropriate, and whether expressing it is going to serve anybody. So the real potential here is for our own anger and aggression to get activated and cause us to do and say things that hurt the people around us because we are agitated because of what's happening in the sky. It just gives us a little bit more awareness that this is a period where it's likely to happen, that we're going to get what we call triggered. Our negativity is going to get excited in resonance with the energies that are permeating our environment. So if we can be careful and decide that our love for those around us is bigger than our need to discharge our anger. That gives us a little bit of room, and hopefully them a little bit of room. And when we do screw up, which we will, we can say, oh, it's the planets, it's not me, and I'm not mad at you. It's just, this is what's happening. And I'm doing the best I can. And I know you're doing the best you can. And, you know, when you have that context of relationship with the people around you, it can make it a lot easier. And if you don't have that context, you can be compassionate with them as they react from what you know are the energetic influences in the air, and you don't have to be part of the fray. You can actually be a little bit quiet, let their energy go by. You don't take it personally, although it's going to feel like it's meant personally because they know you well enough to cut to the quick. And so there it is.
And everybody's triggers will be triggering my trigger and vice versa.
Vice versa, because you all know each other well enough to know right where those spots are, and the invitation, that the impetus to go for it will be there. You can just assume it, and that's the reason forewarned is forearmed. So at least you can sit back and go, oh my God. You know, as you watch it happening to yourself and everybody around you. But somehow the awareness of it makes it less potent. You know, we might not go to divorce because of it, because we have enough space to say, wow, isn't this amazing? It's like being in the middle of a hailstorm, you know, with golf balls. You're going to get hit, but you know, you can have a sense of humor about it in the best moments. That's the best way to deal with it, is to have a sense of humor. Oh, honey, I know you did that thing that really bugs me again. Can you please try not to? And I'll try not to hit you.
Well, I'm going to be with my family, which is already
Yeah.
trigger laden, and
Yes.
they're not going to be well. They're not even going to be
Right.
at their triggering best. They're going to be
Right.
actually at their triggering best.
Yes, they're going to aim for the jugular. You can guarantee it.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. So maybe you can keep them from hurting each other.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you've taken on a big task. And you can see how everything was scheduled to make it
Right?
really frightening.
Oh.
Yes. So having said all that, you know, the more I learn about astrology, well, it's beginning to bring into question how much free will we actually have. Because these things are set up. In a way, they're set up for our benefit. And if we can look at it as that, okay, this is life testing us to see how well we do with our own aggression when everybody else is acting out. And if we can bring levity to the moment, that may be the only thing that we have to offer. And that's huge. You know, it's really huge. When somebody's feeling like the biggest victim they've ever felt, all their victim buttons are pushed. If we can somehow say something that lightens their load for a second, might give them a little bit of light to move. Might give us a little bit of light to not take it personally. And that word The word for that is compassion for ourselves and everybody else. What I didn't say is that there are other planetary configurations that are very much to our benefit at this time, depending on what our personal astrology is. There are planets behaving at their best in other signs, and we didn't say that because that's not what's going to get our attention. As I like to tell my patients, we don't notice our symptoms by their absence. Often we don't know when we're getting well, is another way of saying that. Because, you know, when we stop hitting our finger with a hammer, we don't notice. It's only when the hammer hits that we notice. It's an interesting thing as, you know, a healthcare provider to remind people of their wellness. So we won't go down that train of thought because there's there's a lot of experience, but it's not really pertinent to today's conversation. How may we serve you? So we would like some feedback over the next few weeks about whether or not this information of the coming conflagration in the sky is helpful to you. Because we can talk about how to deal with this and what our own experiences are as this comes in. You know, is it really part of your experience that there's a big upturn in the aggressive feelings and experiences of those around you? And are you better prepared to deal with it knowing about it? Yeah, so we will appreciate your feedback in the coming weeks. Yeah.
You're getting a lot of feedback in the chat that says definitely, absolutely helpful. Yes.
Great, great, great. So we want to have ongoing conversation with this.
Very helpful.
Well, it is really interesting because, as you know, Rebecca was kicking and screaming about us making her learn astrology. And we were relentless in reminding her that that was something that needed to happen. But it is very interesting how much information there is available to humanity on a daily basis just from this ancient science. And it's interesting how different cultures have chosen different ways to obscure it over time. You know, the choice of the tropical calendar is a very interesting one, you know, and the reason it's not in alignment with the sky is because the calculation for the tilt of the Earth was not included in the decision of the tropical calendar. And so to date, it's nearly 24 degrees off from what's actually happening in the sky. And that means that Western astrology as a predictive science is fairly useless, but it's completely valuable in its concentration on describing the personalities that people have from their birth chart. So it's not that it's, and it's something Rebecca will learn over time. Anyway, not to make it all about astrology. It's just where her mind goes these days. Anybody want to ask another question, or should we just go to meditation? Okay. Well, before we start, we'll tell you the reason we're dressed in black today is a close friend had his cellist cancel for a wedding that he booked months and months ago as a violinist for a string quartet. And so he called it desperation yesterday. And so Rebecca is going to play a string quartet in a string quartet for a wedding outside, something she hasn't done for many decades. And decided just to get dressed once today. And so that's why the black. Helping a friend. So let's meditate and enjoy our opportunity to really sit in the depths of awareness. So we'll be transmitting as we meditate. Thank you so much for coming today. So beautiful to be with you. Till next week. Bye for now.